Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं. कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं. Okay, so we did verse 9 and we didn't read Swamiji's commentary yet. So we will do that today. Basically, it was talking about it very briefly, that how the person who is in karma sannyas, what kind of attitude he should have to make progress in spiritual life. That he has to see all his actions, and all different ones, like, what you call hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, eating. And then he also talked about blinking the eyes, holding something, letting go. Anything that you do, you see that you are not the doer. It is one of the hardest things to do, but that's how they need to constantly practice to break their ego. So that's where we are. So let's read Swamiji's commentary. Any volunteers to read? There are only 3 people here to read anyway. But if anybody else wants to read, please, I always ask.
I can read, but my book is...
Yeah, right. I know that your book is... So between the 3 of you, Anilji, Meenaji, Sushilji, one of you. Okay, Sushilji looks like ready.
No, mine is...
Oh, yeah, so it's Meenaji. Okay, Anilji, पढ़िए. तो 8 और 9 वो साथ में है. So आप पहले वो 8 और 9 का English translation and then you can continue.
So you want me to start from 8?
Yeah, 8 and 9 are together, as you can see. So just read that I do nothing at all. That's a literal translation of the verse.
I do nothing at all. Thus would be harmonized knower of truth, think, seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, going, sleeping, breathing.
Now you can go to the 9, yeah.
Speaking, letting go, seizing, opening and closing the eyes, convinced that the senses move among the sense objects. Even such a perfect one is found to live, not sitting like a stone statue, but acting diligently like anyone else in the world. A list of these common and natural activities are indicated in these 2 stanzas: seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, going, sleeping, breathing, speaking, dropping, holding, winking, and so on. In all these unavoidable activities of life, it is explained here, a sage or a prophet living in the world will not have any egoistic vanity.
So I just want, because it's a subtle subject, there are 2 approaches to this. One is that, hey, the person who is already self-realized, how does he behave? And the one who is striving to be one. Also, it's a practice as well as a fact. But to reach that stage where that automatically it starts happening that I'm not the doer, that is kind of beyond us right now. We are still at the early stages. So it applies to both. Just remember that. Here, this paragraph, Swamiji is telling about the person who is kind of at the highest level. And he's saying, वो भी खाली बैठता नहीं है, वो भी काम करता है. लेकिन वो काम करता है इस mode में कि I'm not doing anything. So that's what basically he's saying over here.
In deep sleep we breathe, but we are not conscious of it at all, since at that time the ego in us is not functioning. Similarly, when the ego has ended, all these activities take place instinctively. I think this was the key word, instinctively.
Yes, and remember you had mentioned one time, last time you had a question that, hey, the self-realized one, does he do anything wrong or not? Because that's why he cannot do anything wrong, because he just सहजता से करता है वो. Yeah.
Even while carrying on these activities, the seer has a constant awareness that I do nothing at all. That does not mean that a perfect master is an irredeemable sleepwalker. The essential difference between the two is that the sleepwalker is unconscious, while a sage is ever conscious of the consciousness.
So see how he's using this play of word, because there are sometimes like even you will see with karma yoga, people who are karma yogi, they also work very hard, and the people who are not karma yogi also work very hard. They are like workaholics जिसको बोलते हैं ना, करते जाएंगे, पर वो अपनी ईगो के लिए काम कर रहे हैं, कुछ पाने के लिए कर रहे हैं, दोनों कर रहे हैं. तो लेकिन सरफेस में लगेगा वो both are very hard working, but there is a fundamental difference. So that's even over here, something like that hey, sleepwalker is also is unconscious, he's doing, but here the sage is conscious of the consciousness. And the other important thing over here he's talking about is that he maintains that awareness all the time. That's why when we say sage is in meditation all the time, if you keep that awareness in all the time, that's what meditation is all about, connecting to the higher. He's 24 hours connected. He never forgets. For people like us, when we do satsang and when we are in sattvic mood and all that, we are connected. But then moment some other situation happens, we forget. So we are still at that little forgetful stage.
That this attitude of total surrender of the sense of agency can come only to a perfect master is very clearly indicated here by the two terms centered and steadfast. Yukta, meaning centered in the self. I think when somebody is centered in the self, his instincts can never be wrong.
Correct. That's exactly what it is. And that's why, like in the world, you can see the relationship between mother and the child. There's a oneness in them. That's why mother will always do what is right for the child.
Yes.
So that's how it is. And here he's totally centered. So he's going to do for the world what is right. Yeah.
The self-centeredness can be in two grades of intensity. One indicating the self-centeredness of a seeker who, through study, reflection, and meditation, tries to remain intellectually centered in the self. And the another, the self-absorption of one who, after the final realization of the self in himself, comes to live vitally at every moment the experience of the self, Atmavit.
So there are two words in the verse. There is yuktaha and tattvavit. So he's just talking about, like I was saying, that he's talking about both kind of people. One is, okay, who is like doing it as a practice, through self-reflection, study and meditation, or it is connecting. So uske liye bhi hai, or the one who already tattvavit hai, means person who has already realized. Both of them, this practice, एक को सहजता से सब कुछ हो रहा है, दूसरा याद करके कर रहा है, उसके लिए एक साधना बन गया है वो. I'm not the doer. That's what he's saying.
In order that we may come to withdraw ourselves from the wrong conceptions of our own agency, we must have a substitute knowledge pit in ourselves, which will help us in living the new experience. When I'm ignorant of my waking state personality, I become victimized by my own dream identity. This dream identification ends only when I rediscover my real waking state personality and come to live in the unbroken awareness of I am the waker. Similarly, in order to maintain in myself the attitude, I'm not the actor, it is necessary that I must have another positive assumption to replace this negative false belief. This is indicated in the last line of this stanza, that a man of perfection, living in unison with the truth, is ever an observer of the varieties of his own actions that are executed by the various layers of matter in him among the world objects.
So I know it's a long paragraph. So he's just saying that we need something to hang on to. It is not possible to say I'm not the doer just like that. So it's like you have to understand what atma is and all that, and then just do the chintan about that, and then you will be able to do it. See what I'm saying? Later on he's going to say in, I think, the next verse or somewhere, ki we said that we should not be attached, right? So ऐसे ही नहीं अपने से होने वाला है. You need to attach to something higher so that we can drop something lower. Means we need some higher altar to hang on to at our stage. We cannot just by knowledge, suddenly I'll change. No, that's what he's doing. So he's giving an example that when I'm ignorant of my waking state personality, I become victimized my own dream. क्योंकि मैं भूल गया कि मैं कौन हूँ. My mind is kind of, there is a body connection to gaya, and I'm in the subtle world, and I forgot that, hey, I am this person. That's why so when I rediscover my real personality. Did everybody get this concept?
Yeah, the way I understand is, if you are walking in a dream state, not realizing you are still in dream, then you can fall in a pit and not knowing. But if you are aware that this is not a dream and you are walking, then you will avoid all the pits.
I mean, it's little bit slightly different at that, because the whole dream, the moment you realize you are not the dreamer, that means you are awake. So everything will go away of the dream. Pit and walking and जो भी कुछ dream है सब साथ में चला जाएगा. That's the whole concept. So what the whole thing is, that when these self-realized people awaken to this higher state, फिर उनको ये सारी दुनिया ड्रीम की जैसे लगती है. हम लोग pick and choose करेंगे, this I'm getting so attached to, this I'm not, this and that. For them it's like everything is detachment then.
Yeah, so that means at that time they are not affected by anything.
There you go. So that distinction you should have it clearly, because what you are trying to say is, partial thing, hey, I won't fall in the ditch.
Yeah.
No, in that he will realize, अरे मैं भी मेरी body भी वो dream body थी, चल भी मैं रहा था और pit में भी मैं गिर रहा था. That was all dream body together. That's the difference. And that's why in Bhagavad Gita it says कि if you want to get over your grief or sadness and all that, this is the sure method. When you realize that whole thing is a dream, or it's instead of saying dream also, maybe that's not the best word for it's a different state of consciousness. It is a changing state. It is not the ultimate reality.
But can you also term it, as you say, play of Maya?
Yeah, you can call definitely. Prakriti is called Maya, and Maya means that which is not.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what it is. Or the other way you can say, it's a constantly changing part of it. इसको भी भगवान ही कहा गया है एक दृष्टि से, because it's like snake and the rope. Snake came because of the rope only. So it is connected with. अभी आएगा ये कठोपनिषद में आएगा छाया और light. Chaya can only happen because of light. So you can look at it that way. But Chaya is constantly changing thing, isn't it? दोपहर में बढ़ती है, फिर कम हो जाती है, ये हो जाती है. दुनिया में भी सब चेंज होता रहता है. और हम लोग वो चेंज बर्दाश्त नहीं कर पाते, इसके लिए हम लोग अपसेट होते हैं. सोचो आप,
because the change is not accordance in our desire.
Yeah, and why does a desire happen? Because we forget the nature of the world. अगर समझो, suppose somebody doesn't even believe in higher self, but अगर उसको nature of the world पता चल जाए, तो भी उसको disturb नहीं होना चाहिए, if you really think about it. Because you have seen people born, they are dying, and we all have moved. Half of the people sitting here, we have moved from another place. Change, constant change, so that's how it is.
Just as the ocean, were it conscious, could watch and observe its own waves rising and setting upon its own surface, declaring its own glory, so too, from the infinite depths of his own personality, the Master watches the actions performed by the various layers of matter in him. As I am typing these lines, I can watch my own fingers typing, and the more detached I grow, the more entertaining becomes the play of the fingers on the keyboard. Similarly, a sage can, once having entered the innermost sanctum of his self, ever afterwards watch the inert matter entities in him getting thrilled with activity in 1,000 channel of independent preoccupations. He is unconcerned, he is unperturbed. From the bottomless depths of his own being, he watches on in perfect detachment born of his realized knowledge, and he is ever confident that I do nothing at all.
See, so your last sentence is the most important one. He is unperturbed and unconcerned, because from the bottomless depth of his own being, he watches on in perfect detachment, born of the realized knowledge. That means he has realized knowledge से उसको पता चल गया है कि प्रकृति और पुरुष अलग अलग है, and I am that पुरुष, and ये प्रकृति में सब कुछ हो रहा है, and he's ever confident I'm doing nothing at all. तो उसका ईगो में आता ही नहीं है उसको ख्याल. हम लोग जब भगवत गीता वगैरह पढ़ते हैं तो हम लोग बड़े सात्विक और अच्छे होते हैं. मोमेंट वी गेट इनटू द वर्ल्ड, फिर वो ईगो गेम शुरू हो जाता है. किसी ने थोड़ा कुछ बोल दिया, कुछ कर दिया, so completely forget, how dare you, we start. That's what it is, the difference,
But Umaji, not completely forget. It stays with you.
The more it will stay, the more relaxed you will get.
Yeah.
And you will see, like one day you had asked, no, okay, how do we know that we are making progress? That's how we make progress.
Yes.
When other people are, some things are going, what should I say, not so good things are going, and you don't get disturbed because you remember, hey, this is just a play, and ये तो होता ही रहता है, something. Then you know. So you're right. More and more that means more and more you are getting connected to the higher. That's all. Yeah. And what they are talking about, a guy who's fully connected.
Yes.
इसके लिए कुछ भी हो जाए बाहर, he's not going to get disturbed. It's just like, suppose I got the most horrible dream, or I got the most beautiful dream. When I wake up, I'll say, oh my God, both were dream. What difference it makes? Whether something bad happened to me or something good. That's how he looks at it. It's hard for us right now to imagine, but we have to trust that, this happens to them.
But what should be the attitude of a man who's not a truth knower and is engaged in action?
Okay. So what the next verse is, see, Bhagavad Gita, and I told you, it's like Upanishadic style. It tells you the highest and then it comes down to the next level. Suppose you are still at the lower level, what other sadhana that you can do? So basically what it is that it's another technique of karma yoga mentioned in the next one. That's what it is. It's like telling you a very, very powerful, nice, and the example is so beautiful that once you will know that example, you will not forget this example because it is so appropriate and beautiful. So that's what the next verse is. So let me chant this. So it's a verse 10 of chapter 5. ब्रह्मण्याध्याय कर्माणि संगं त्यक्त्वा करोति यः लिप्यते न स पापेन पद्मपत्र विभावसा. Brahmani is in Brahman. Adhaya, having placed. Karmani, actions. So place actions into Brahman means surrender to Brahman. That's what basically it means. Sangam is attachment. Tyaktva, having abandoned. Tyag dena, usse aaya word tyaktva. Karoti is acts. Yah is who. Lipyate is tainted. Na is not. Sa is he. Papena, by sin. Padma patram, lotus leaf. Iva is like. Ambhasa is water. So let's see what he's saying over here. So everybody knows the kamal ka fool, right? And then we had discussed last time that kamal ka fool कीचड़ से में जन्म लेता है. लेकिन जब वो ऐसे ऊपर डंडी आती है एंड द लीव्स आर देयर, उसके लीव पे एक जरा सा कण भी पानी का नहीं टिकता, सीधा और एकदम साफ रहता है वो पत्ता, you know. So even though it is born and take the nourishment from the कीचड़, it stays up beautiful, you know. That's the way he's saying we should live in the world, because I know that sometimes, you know, we get so disturbed. Oh, the world is so bad, ye hai wo hai, you see so many negative things happening and all that, but we live in it, we are born of it. But then you have to live detached, and when a person who is living detached can live happy and can do whatever for the world, because detachment se hi kaam hota hai. And Swamiji is going to give almost an example that when you are not detached, you cannot even do any action properly. And the best example is of a doctor operating on its own family. They will never do it. Why? He can never do a good job because the attachment is there. Uske haath hi kaapne lagenge. You know, that example we can understand 100%. Or like we say, no, कि हम लोग अपने बच्चे को कुछ सिखा नहीं सकते. We have to send them to classes, even though we may know very well, but attachment is there. We don't know how to manage. So that's what it is. With attachment, कोई काम नहीं होता. You know, it's a proof in front of our eyes. So the other points over here is, so let's kind of backtrack and just connect it a little bit, this verse, to the previous ones. So you remember that in chapter 3, he talked about the entire scheme of karma yoga, right? And there was a verse 30, you know, and that was a almost summary of you know, of a similar kind of verse where he said that dedicate all the actions to me and don't worry about the past and the future, you know, like anxiety of the future and regrets of the past. Don't have too much anxiety of the present. Ye karna hai karke. Some people, they may not be thinking of past and future, but they get too over anxious. अपना वो भी नहीं होना चाहिए, feverish anxiousness नहीं होना चाहिए. Then you can, with detachment, you can work. That's karma yoga. So that's what he mentioned before. Similar is over here. वहां पर बोला था मई सर्वाणी कर्माणी, यहाँ पर बोला है ब्रह्मणि आधाय. Adhaya means to be placing your karmas into Brahman, means dedicating it to Brahman, doing like a Ishwar. So हम बोलते हैं ना कि हर एक काम पूजा की तरह करो. So कोई काम में बोरियत लगेगी नहीं. I mean, that's what when we do my class in 10th grade, you know, the biggest problem, all the teenagers are, oh, such boring chores. My mom tells me to clean up the room and this and that. So sometimes I tell them, okay, your mom also tells you to do puja and all that, right? Yeah. Suppose if you cannot do puja, why don't you think that cleaning the room is a puja of Krishna? Kaam bhi ho gaya aur puja bhi ho gayi. What can be better than that? So that's why I said, pick up the most boring part of your duty and think it's a Bhagwan. So then suddenly that job becomes the best, you know, because I don't want to do something, you know, ordinary for a Bhagwan. I have to do the best cleaning that I can do. That's what it is. So everything becomes like a worship because you have placed it in to Bhagwan. And then another point, you know, when it comes to Karma Yoga, this Dilli Wale Swami really rubbed it that, you know, everybody performs action, but ask yourself, why are you doing this action? You know, it's like, are you doing it for your pride? कि मैं, you know, oh, मैं इसे कर सकता हूँ, ये वो. Are you trying to show off to the world, to your friends? You know, I'm so great, I can do this. Or you're doing it because, you know, कभी-कभी लोग anger में भी करते हैं. How dare you, I'll show you I can do this. All that kind, we have seen, you know. Or greed. You know, मेरे को ये मिल जाए, वो मिल जाए, you know. And with greed में तो, it's very dangerous. People do even wrong actions. Ask yourself why you're doing it. Because he's saying that sometimes, you know, like people totally misunderstand that बोलते फलाना तो बहुत कर्मयोगी है जी, 24 घंटे काम करता रहता है. You know, he was joking. He's saying क्या करता रहता है, नौकरों को डांटता रहता है. You know, or, you know, at the job you are trying to boss over the other people. Hey, he looks like he's working. He's not karma yogi because his intention is all these wrong things. Why he's doing it, you know, and greed, anger, frustration, and all that thing. So basically, what karma yoga is important is a higher altar. Highest is Bhagwan, of course. If you can, we can dedicate it to God, nothing like it. But suppose, I don't know yet who God is, who should I dedicate, and I don't have a Ishta Devta, whatever it can be. Hey, dedicate it to your country. Dedicate it to, your teacher, your guru. Dedicate it to your parents, or koi nahi mila do. Or your family. Even that's better. See what I'm saying? As long as it becomes something higher, that becomes a dedication. And ultimate goal is to go as far as Bhagwan. I'm dedicating it to Bhagwan. So that's the difference between karma yoga and just ordinary action, And basically it is not doing for selfishness. That is the key thing. So it's like some people say, no, I only do it for 3 reasons, me, mine, and myself. No, that's not what they're talking about over here. So should be the attitude? So now that I have learned, Bhagwan and me are one, and from the Tattvataha we are one. So it is basically, changing my thinking that I am part of this cosmos, okay? And I'm born to fulfill some mission, and that's why everybody finds, what is my goal in this life? In a sense, I have a worldly goal and I have a spiritual goal. And worldly goals are also important. Nobody's saying no. Everybody's been given some talent. And then if we go back to chapter 3, he was talking about how the one who does not contribute to the wheel of this universe is a thief. Remember? How we are just taking from family, society, country, everything, and then but not want to give anything in return. Somebody was telling me, my boys were telling me that, there are so many jobs available now, all of a sudden, because some of the people don't want to work because they are getting unemployed. उनको आदत पड़ गई अभी unemployment, ये वो पूछो लोगों को, लोग को मिल नहीं रहे हैं काम करने, हर जगह जॉब लिखा हुआ है, because usually जो दूसरे लोग हैं ना executive type है, उन लोग का ठीक है, but the labor and all that, lot of them, they just don't want to do anything. So that's what it is, that hey, you have to remember that you're born to contribute something, certain mission, and I'm going to be doing a lot, but offer it all to Bhagwan, like the previous verses that we saw, that all the actions that are happening in the Prakriti only, and that concept, agar if I cannot grasp it yet, I can do it dedication. So it's like talking about 2 different types of people. We are not there yet. I cannot have this non-doership attitude because it's hard. So I do the dedicated attitude. That's what he's talking about, dedicated to the higher. Okay. And then he was also, Dilliwale Swamiji was joking. He said, sometime, people would retire हो जाते हैं, तो भी वो काम पे जाना चाहते हैं. I'm not saying that anything against it, but just a little concept, because काम करने की इतनी आदत पड़ गई है, they don't know how to sit quiet. And sometimes, when people have family business, they think बच्चे बोलेंगे, पिताजी अभी आप आराम कीजिए. Not that they want him to do आराम. They don't want him to interfere anymore. मैं आपको सत्संग में छोड़ के आता हूँ. लेकिन नहीं, मेरे को भी हिसाब देखना है, मेरे को ये देखना है. Means don't want to let go. And we can kind of think that as people are like that, और हमारे साथ भी कभी-कभी ऐसा होता है. So we have to be cautious about it. Hey, when my job is done, I don't need to be doing this anymore. Don't have the attachment to the job, And my husband tells me that there are some professors who are 95 years old, don't want to give up their position, because in America they made a law. Somebody did some discrimination lawsuit and all that, so they don't have any retirement age. तो वो 95 का हो गया है, कुछ he cannot be productive, and he's occupying the seat, and the other young people cannot get a chance, and he's just sitting. I will have to work until I die. I don't care. Some people might look at it so great and all that because he's working, but other young people, poor guys, are like, don't have the positions because these guys are occupying. So that's what it is. And then another thing he said, if you're not attached, then you will be always ready to do what is the right thing to do. Because he said sometimes job may demand hey, go from one city to another. And you have too much attachment, you will not go. But if you don't have attachment, okay, if my duty wants me here, I'll do here. If my duty wants me there, I'll go. So see how easy it becomes with detachment. I thought that was a very good point too. And the other thing that I already mentioned, that the world is constantly changing, so you don't know what is going to change. So if you are detached, very easily you will adapt, not only just to the place, for anything. Sometimes I have seen कि कोई employee चला जाता है ना किसी का अच्छा वाला, वो इतने दुखी होते हैं, ओ ये हो गया, वो गया. Hey, maybe another better one will come. You don't know. And it has happened that, you are crying because somebody left and they were the best, and then after 6 months, maybe somebody even better comes. You don't know. So, but in the world, the change is there, Another very big danger can happen when you are not mature in this thing. It's like somebody can say, oh, I don't need to do anything. All I need is this attitude that I'm not the doer. Right? So, क्यों ना मैं कुछ भी ना करूं और बस यही attitude अगर I'm not the doer, तो Krishna will no, get up and work. Because, that's the danger. So people who are not highly evolved, that's why we have to do our duties, I thought that was a very good point. But how do you do it? That's what he's in this verse. That's what we are coming back to. So he's saying that what are our problems in our mind? We have talked about. We have all these Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Mat, Matsarya. These are the dirts of mind. And in Vedanta, these are called the sins. And he's saying, what is sin? These are the sin. So he's saying, if you, work like the Kamal Kapatra in this world, okay, you are getting nourishment from the world, कीचड़ से सब कुछ मिल रहा है, मगर मैं उसमें involved नहीं होऊंगा. Then the sin will not touch you. Because it's like a metaphor. कीचड़ में sin, you can call it, or something, it's a metaphor. So it's like you are above all these things because you are not getting attached to anything. Detachment. So just remember this, because sometimes people say, that I have told you, hey, at work, everybody is like competitive and all that. How can I not be? होता है ना कि कोई कोयले की कोठरी में जाएंगे तो कालिख लगी जाती है, ऐसा बोलते हैं ना लोग. So here he's saying, look at the example of the Kamal. कितना भी वो गंदगी से निकला हो, it can stay fresh. So it's possible. Don't come up with that other side of argument. ऐसा भी हो सकता है, वैसा भी हो सकता है, That's what he's telling. Yeah, Anil ji.
There is one more thing about the example of Kamal.
Mm-hmm.
He is surrounded by Kichar, yet he is not affected by Kichar, but he needs Kichar to survive.
There you go. The excellent point. Excellent point. Because that's why I said get nourishment from it only. So that, and then it is born from it also.
Yes.
Born from it needs a nourishment from it. So you cannot abandon the world again. That's exactly what it's telling you. Yeah. So that's what, these are the points. Anybody else has any comment or want to add anything or any question about this example that he's giving? Okay.
What about almost realized person? When I'm looking at the example of the nourishment, and to him it doesn't matter, does it? I mean, nourishment in the sense of physical, yes. As long as his body's there, he's going to need that. That's true. But other than that, what else are we thinking about?
Yeah, I think what basically what Anil ji is saying, even कोई कितना भी self realize हो या वो एकदम पे पहुंच गया हो, उसको रहना तो इसी वर्ल्ड में पड़ेगा. धरती तो वही यूज कर रहा है, right? He's sitting and
but it's already above.
Yeah, true. So mentally he's detached, and that's exactly what they are saying. That hey, even if you're not all the way there, with this example, try to get more and more detached. That's all he's saying. That okay, the reality is that the body is made up of Panch Mahabhut, and this Dharti is made of Panch Mahabhut, and we will need to eat, we'll need to breathe, do all of that, and totally fine. But you don't need to get, you can take the nourishment and still be detached. That's what he's saying, telling you. And then people can have different levels of detachment, right?
True.
Yeah. But one thing is for sure, the more detached we get, the more we will not get involved with the sin, you can call it, a purity of mind will start happening, and then one day we can get established in that,
Okay. I'm looking at two things. I'm looking at, I know what you're saying, the world, and you're detached from it. Then I'm looking, I don't know why, I keep on thinking, there is a substratum, which is the same, on which teacher is also there, right?
See, that when you say substratum,
there's a world there. Okay, so tell me, help me.
So substratum is like, so सचमुच वो detached the कीचड़ से. That's what we are trying to get to, if you think about it. It's like sunlight and this world. The sunlight touches everything, but it's still separate, doesn't get contaminated. Or
right. It is like a witness type thing.
Yes.
You're talking about the witness, right?
You can call it witness, or you can call it substratum, whatever approach you want to do. Basically, we are trying to get to that stage. Hey, I am not this. I am actually the consciousness. This body is just, it's like a shell given to me. This world is like a shell that I'm just staying in it. अगर कोई वहां तक पहुंच गया तो वो automatically detach हो ही गया है. They are talking about people who are struggling to get detached. He's giving you another example to hang on to so that they can get detached. That's all this one is. If you have risen above this, you may not even need this example because you're already detached. But if suppose somebody is struggling, he's giving you a worldly example that it can be done.
Okay.
That's how you see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yes. Because I was looking at the screen, I'm looking at the screen, I'm looking at the movies on top, and I'm saying, that's my substratum, the screen is. And everything happening is like the teacher, the world is happening. I am the substratum to it. Then I'm thinking of the flower in there. And so, all the thoughts were coming in my mind, and I just wanted to clarify. But I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now you can read.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yes. He who does actions, offering them to Brahman, abandoning attachment, is not tainted by sin, just as a lotus leaf remains unaffected by the water on it. What has been said in the previous stanza may be true for those rare few who have realized the truth and are reveling in God consciousness. But the strange life of detachment, by which we can renounce completely the sense of agency, is not available for all of us. We are but aspirants and seekers of this perfection. The way in which we can train ourselves to renounce the sense of agency will be the problem of all true students of the Geeta, who want to live the Geeta rather than talk about its ideas. In this stanza, we have a prescription by which every one of us can come to live the life of intelligent detachment in life.
So see, now Swamiji explained it as clearly as possible that it's, this agency ka thing is not available to all of us because it's just too difficult. So that's why this prescription is given.
Right. Resigning to Brahman. Total detachment is impossible for the human mind, and that is exactly what spiritual seekers often fail to understand. As long as there is a mind, it has to attach itself to something. Therefore, detachment from the false can be successful only when we attach ourselves to the real. This psychological fact is scientifically enunciated in this stanza, wherein Lord Krishna advises the seeker to surrender all his attachments to Brahman and continue striving on. To remember constantly an ideal is to become more and more attuned to the perfections of the ideal. In order that we may surrender all our sense of agency in our actions to Brahman, we have to remember this concept of truth as often as we now remember our limited ego. When the frequency of our thoughts upon the Lord becomes as high as the frequency with which we now remember the ego idea, we shall come to realize the Brahman ideal as intimately as we now know our own ego.
He explained it absolutely beautifully. That, as long as we have the mind, it's not, you need something higher to attach to. And the more you're going to, and that's why satsang is there. Think about it. We kind of already know a lot of things, but that, daily, weekly, whatever we do, our sadhana, it keeps us. And one of the best example that I heard was, if you sit near heat, you will also get warm. So if you hear about the Brahman constantly, there are more chances that you will live in it, And that's the kind of change we saw in ourselves when we, joined the study group and things like that, hey, because, weekly basis pay, and then, twice a week or 3 times a week, we are constantly getting in touch. And then other days, then we remember more frequently, So that's what he's saying, yeah.
In short, today we are ego-realized souls. The Gita's call to man is to become soul-realized egos.
See how he's saying that, play up. And then there's another big, I don't know if you guys have heard it, that we always say that we are humans having a spiritual experience. That's what they say, I'm a human, And the saints are saying, no, you are spiritual being having a human experience.
Right.
That's
is also what we have to attain.
Yeah, because we're saying, I'm getting this spiritual, no, it's like ulta.
Yes. Yeah. Once our real nature is realized, the actions of the body, mind, and intellect can no more leave any impressions upon the self. Merits and demerits belong to the ego and never to the Atman. The imperfections of my reflections in a mirror cannot be my imperfections, but can only be because of the distortions in the reflecting surface. The reflection may look shortened or lengthened according to the type of the mirror into which I am looking. Similarly, the ego comes to suffer the perfect and the imperfect reactions of its own actions.
So here, there is a very important point that even if something not so great is happening in somebody's life, it's not that like everything will go smoothly in a saint's life. And we have seen by example also, it does not. Even they get cancer, everything just like anybody else, it happens to them. But they realize it, that all this is just imperfections of this reflection का उसमें example दिया, and that is the best example that whatever is happening to the reflection, that's not me. It can be, and that mirror वो होता ना, मेले में होता था वो mirror, उसमें तो कोई मोटा दिखता है, एक mirror में पतला दिखता है, the kids get all scared and start crying. That's not how I am, but adults know it's just a mirror. That's how they look at the world, which is amazing, So from the worldly perspective, things may not look so great, but he knows it very well. That
he's not attached to the body really. He is
because he knows the body.
He's a witness to the body, and therefore whatever is happening to the body, it's like it's happening to this something else, but not to me, not to the realized soul. So he is already detached from that.
And the people who have that experience, near-death experience, when they leave their body and they go in the other realm, they immediately say, no matter how much pain, surgery के table पे वो लोग हैं, and or they are drowning or some, जब accident होता है तभी तो उनको ये experience होता है ना. So in this world, their body is like in super distress. They say they feel so great. कुछ भी नहीं. Like suddenly, like felt the most beautiful feeling. It's hard for us because हम लोग इतने बंधे हुए हैं ना, जरा सा सर दर्द होता है तो लगता है मरे अभी, like हम लोग कोई कुछ हो रहा है. But actually it is just the body that is, and when the moment we go in deep sleep also, forget about near death experience. You go in deep sleep, everything is disconnected. Whether you have a bad pain or you are in bliss, the moment you sleep, everybody deep sleep is the same. They don't feel anything. So
Having thus realized the self to remain in the matter envelopments and their world of objects is to remain ever perfectly detached as the lotus leaf in the water. Though the lotus leaf exists only in water, draws its nourishment from the very water, and dies away in the same water, yet, during its life as a leaf, it does not allow itself to be moistened by the water. Similarly, a saint in the world, as a matter entity, draws the nourishment for his individual existence from the world of objects, but ever remains perfectly detached from his own merits and demerits, from his own concept of beauty and ugliness, from his own likes and dislikes in the outside world.
it is telling you to rise above. When they say rise above, this is what it means.